Hello, I'm Stuart Bloor and I'm at one of my favourite places in the whole wide world, the water's edge. I've arrived at this pool. I'm doing an overnighter for carp. I have fished here before for the species. That must have been 2-3 years ago, something like that. And it's only a small place, but the fish don't come out very easily. I did catch when I was here before, but I also blanked as well. I had one decent fish and I had a few nights when I didn't get anything at all. And I think there's probably a couple of reasons for that. I think first of all, that the density of carp in here isn't great. So immediately you're after just a few fish. And secondly, I get the idea from this venue that there's a lot of natural feed in here as well. So you're competing with all that sort of stuff that's in there naturally. So that's the situation that I'm putting myself into, but I like a challenge. Of course, you can go and fish waters where you can get a run every 20 minutes or even 10 minutes even on some of those places that are heavily stocked. On the other hand, the other extreme, you can fish somewhere, a big gravel pit, where you maybe get one run in a year. And of course, that's the great thing about fishing, isn't it? It can be to each one of us whatever we want it to be. Well, this place is the sort of venue that's right up my street, and I'm looking forward to doing a night on here. I'll show you my swim anyway and how I intend to fish it. This is where my left rod will go. As you can see, there are some dense overhanging trees there, and I'm going to fish to the edge of the trees, not into open water as such, but this side of the trees, so that any fish that come in during the night feeding, then I'll be able to pick them up and to intercept them. So my bait that I'll be putting here, I'll be scattering over a fairly wide area because I want any fish that come in to pick them up, to start feeding, and then of course to find the hook bait. So the bait won't be in a tight spot at all. It will be out there in 7-8 feet of water, and that's the plan for the left rod. And my other rod, the right one, will be fished up to those trees that you can see out there. That's actually an island, and it's very, very dense, and I'll be fishing up there. Now they will be a little bit tighter because I do expect fish to be patrolling along those trees during the evening and then into night, of course. So that's where I'll be putting my right hand rod. I'm ready to mix some ground bait up now. As you can see in the tub there, I've got sweet corn. This will be for the left rod. I'm going to fish a sweet flavoured, a fruit flavoured boilie, and then I've got some Flamino ground bait. I'm fishing liver flavour, and then I've got some ground bait mix. Put that in, and then I'll put the bait out. On the right hand side I'll do the same, but I'll put boilies in with the mix instead of sweet corn. I'll be fishing M2 on the right rod. And there's the mix. As you can see, all ready to put out. I'll just put it out by hand. I'm not fishing too far out. I won't even be casting over arm. I'll be just flicking it out from the bank. So looking forward to that. I like ground bait. I've always used ground bait for carp. It seems to be quite popular these days, but I've always gone for that because I'm a great believer, as I've often said on the videos, that a crowd attracts a crowd. And certainly the ground bait, the small particles of crumb, they'll settle on the bottom, form a cloud, whatever, when you put them in. That will attract small fish. And the small roach, the rudd, perch even, tench, all those sort of things will come in. And because they will feed on the small particles, then of course the plan is that the carp follow suit. So I'm a great believer, as I've said, that a crowd attracts a crowd. So putting corn out and feeding off a few small roach and bringing other fish in doesn't bother me at all, because the hook bait that I will be using won't be taken by any of those small fish. If it's taken by roach, it'll probably be a 2-pounder, so I won't be disappointed there. But the plan is to draw the fish in and then for the carp to follow. I'm fishing now, the rods are out, probably see my pod behind me. I always leave the shelter till last, unless of course the weather's looking dodgy, but it's not. It's going to be a great night, lovely sunny, late summer's evening, and I'm definitely looking forward to this session. I mentioned I was fishing with M2 pop-ups. There's the tub of them. As you can see, I've got through those probably about halfway at the moment. I'm fishing 2 times 12mm pop-ups, and on the other one I mentioned I was fishing a fruit flavoured boilie. There it is. That's I think that's a 16mm or an 18mm actually. There's no size on there, but I think that's probably an 18mm. And I'm fishing a single one of those, popped up again, and that's actually a soluble boilie, so it begins to break down in the water and looses, or should I say it, releases a little bit of flavour around the boilie, which of course it sometimes gives you that little bit of an edge. So the rods are out, I'm happy, get the shelter up, have a cup of tea, have something to eat. The waiting game has already begun. I blanked on session 1, but here I am, my second outing of the week. It's a different venue, and that is the water behind me. Although it's very, very misty, it's definitely an autumnal feel to the start of the day. And of course that's the time of the year now, isn't it? Get these lovely mists that come up over the water. Anyway, I had a hook pull at 2:32. And I don't know if you heard that splash there, but I'm coming to that in a moment. I had a hook pull at 2:32, so I thought I was going to break my duck for the week. Unfortunately, I didn't. But 5:30, I had a screamer of a run, and I've got a mirror in the net, and I'm going to show that to the camera right now. There it is. Not a big fish, but when you're talking about blanks, they're all very, very welcome. Right, on the mat now. Always do your filming and videoing or whatever on your knees, so that in the event that the fish does fall, which is probably unlikely, it only goes just inches down to the mat. That one's gone back safely, which is great, of course. I did lose the lead during the fight. I'm not sure whether there was a little bit of a weed bed out there. Anyway, I lost the lead, and that's a good thing, because if you I'm fishing with a lead clip, if you set your rig so tight that the lead is not going to come off, then it's not a safe rig, is it? And I know there's the pain of losing leads, which can be expensive as they mount up if we keep losing them on a regular basis. But all I would say is, if we're worried about losing leads, then we shouldn't be carp fishing, or fishing for other species for that matter, because the last thing we want to do is to lose line above the lead setup, and that fish is towing around, in effect a death sentence. So if we're worried about losing leads, don't fish. We're doing the wrong sort of hobby. We have to accept that if we set our rigs properly, we make our rigs properly, we set them correctly, then we will lose leads from time to time, but that's actually a good thing. You saw the fish there, and it wasn't particularly big. Now of course we want to catch big carp, and that depends on the venue, of course. That's always important to bring that into account. On this particular place I am now, a 20 would be a good fish, a very good fish, and that would be my target for when I'm here. But of course you can't legislate for what size of carp or what size carp picks up your bait. I'm using a 16mm pop-up on that particular one. That was a soluble pineapple that fish took. So you can't determine unless you're watching fish feed and you're dropping in front of them, you can't determine which size carp is going to pick up your bait. But the positives out of maybe catching smaller fish when you want to catch bigger ones is that your rig is working, your bait's working, everything's in the right place. So there's still lots of positives that you can draw from that. And sometimes on particular venues where there might be lots of smaller fish but not so many big ones, in many ways you do have to literally wade through the smaller ones until you catch the big one. So there's nothing wrong with catching small fish, because if that's what took the bait, then that's nothing that you can do about that, of course. But the positive thing, as I say, is that everything's working, everything's in the right place. Gives you confidence, doesn't it? Well, I've got probably 2 or 3 hours now before I pack away. It's one of these places where driving home, lots of traffic, so I'll wait until the rush hour dies down and then I'll set off home. Now, it would be great to get a second fish, but I'm always happy to avoid that blank.